Greetings, everyone. Nathan Nerdarchy here from Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I'm hanging out with a nerd.
I am Kienata, and tonight we have decided to answer some GM 911s and hopefully also answer some questions from chat.
Yeah, so one of the things is we've noticed is over the years at Nerdarchy, we never get to all the GM 911s, or there's some that just either won't make long enough videos, or for whatever reason they just kind of like fall the wayside when we read it and go, yeah, let's do that, and we forget to say mark as new, and then it's like, oh, we already did that one, and it gets shuffled down the list. So a whole bunch of logistical problems, as well as just things not working out video wise, that we just don't get to them all. So I think it's a good time to catch up on some, and you'll get the Nathan Nerdarchy and Kienata's perspective. And if Dave and Ted want to do it again, they can crank it out on one of the videos that they normally do. So,
Exactamundo.
I want to dive into one that I thought was pretty interesting, and we'll go with also what people in chat, what they desire. For right now, I do not have chat open, so if Kienata, if you could man the helm as far as
Tell
the
me all
comments.
your desires, chat. Tell me what you need. Okay, let's do the one you got.
All right, so this is from Devlin, and he says, I'm relatively new DM. I'm probably done about 8 sessions. One of his players doesn't like her character very much. I've told her she can just retire the character if she thinks she would have more fun with something else. So he says she wants to just let the character finish her story out, so she doesn't want to make a new character, which is understandable. You already got a character in the mix. Is there anything I can do to make her character more fun to her? Should I try to get rid of the character in some way in the game? She's an Elven Life Cleric if that is important. So thanks, Devlin. And one of the things I would say is, if they want to just have the character run the course, maybe it's, at that point it's like, well, I'm not personally having that much fun with my character, but I'd like to see the storyline kind of be wrapped up, rather than trying to like shoehorn in a new character. And being the Elven Life Cleric, I can see that being an issue. I have an Elven Cleric as well, and pretty much there's some battles we would not make it through if I wasn't there. And the other battles, I just feel kind of useless. But but for the most part, there's a point in the game that if I'm there, it makes a big difference. So I can see that's also a thing. If she's the only cleric, she might just want to also just hang in there as that party role until this part of the storyline gets wrapped up. So I'd say, unless if she hasn't completely like checked out on having a lot of interest in this character, perhaps go back to her backstory, say like, well, is there anything you'd like to finish off with this character if you're having trouble thinking up ideas, or you want to get some input from her personally. She might have a character goal that's like, oh, I wasn't thinking I was going to do this, but hey, this would be cool if this happened before X time.
I would also say something he mentioned, and correct me if I'm wrong here. I think he said, do you think I should work out a way to end the character? Like finish the character off real quick or something like that?
Yeah, kind of. I guess like if she didn't have to say, yeah, kill off my character.
Yeah.
Because it would feel like she's quitting. She's quitting on that character, but if he kills the character, then she didn't quit.
I feel like if the player tells me I'm going to keep playing this character, the last thing I would do would be murder the character after they just told me, like, if they really wanted out, it sounds like he gave them an easy out.
Yeah.
He told them, if you want to quit, you can quit and we'll give you a new character. So they've already expressed that they want to keep that character and keep playing. I would not pull the plug at that point. I think you might be ripping the carpet out from underneath them if you do that.
Yeah, I would just say, to make it a bit more interesting, see if there's any little story elements she's missed out on that she was envisioned for the character. That, especially if she's going to stop playing that character after this story arc. That's kind of what I'm getting. So that's what I'm getting out of it, is that maybe not for the entirety of the campaign if you're like going to 20th level or whatever. But, if she's like finishes out the story arc, give it an interesting ending on her part, and then, that character goes off into the sunset, and like you guys can start off the new section. Maybe the new character is part of the hook, or has a vested interest in the next section of your campaign, and you can just start the new character with that and run with it. If you got 8 sessions in, I would also say it doesn't sound like she's got an issue where she just wants the character hop. Because there's some people that just want to do, like, I'm bored after 2 sessions, I want to play another character concept.
Yes, absolutely. I designed this to do a thing, and it doesn't do that exact thing. So I'm going to go design a new one and try that one out.
And that doesn't sound like that's happening, and I'm not there as well, so it's really hard to tell.
We lack a great deal of context on this, but given the information we have.
Yeah, so given the information we have, I'd say go those routes.
I would also say that just sitting down with this player and having a conversation with her and being like, all right, dude, what did you want? Like if you were getting the experience you wanted out of this character, what would it be? Like, what would you rather be doing? There might be a way to finagle something more entertaining for them into the current game session. There's maybe she's just like, this life cleric sucks, I want to smash some heads in. Like, you know what I mean? Like, maybe that's all it is. And if that's all it is, I would be like, okay, well, I will facilitate a way for you to smash in heads and make this much more fun, even if it's just to finish the current story arc.
Yeah.
You know.
So I hope that helps, Devlin, and let us know. We've got one from... we have any in chat? Just let me know when there is some in chat.
No, James Leslie said they should find out why they aren't having fun with the character. Some of the issues can be corrected. And absolutely, I completely agree. Some of those issues could absolutely be corrected.
Yeah, so again, you can start a conversation about like what problem solving, kind of like what could make it a more fun experience. So this is from a James. First, I would like to thank you for answering my last 911 issue. My current group of friends who now play want to know more about feats, and more importantly, getting feats as a reward for my current group of for quest instead of using a stat bump. So this is more of like a gamist kind of thing. With so Kienata, we can chime in on that respect. And also, I would be willing to give out a feat that increases crit range for all classes and not just the champion. So my question for you is, will handing out feats break the game? And more importantly, your thoughts on a feat that increases the crit range by 1, or maybe a weapon enchantment that does that?
Okay. There are multiple angles on this.
This is a big knot.
Yeah, this is a big knot. So first of all, you're talking about, is this going to imbalance the game system? If you are homebrewing, if you are introducing your own sets of mechanics and rules, then it is very much up to you to keep those things in check. Realistically speaking, you could make the crit range a natural 16 through 20, and as long as you were properly compensating for that as the games master, you'd be fine. Your players are just doing more damage. They're not offsetting a bunch of other factors of gameplay. They're just doing more damage. So compensate.
Yeah, or I mean, maybe that's to get the combats to be more exciting. So like people crit more often, and it's always exciting when someone rolls a 20, or when that champion gets that 19 or 20 or whatever. So it's understandable. Getting crits is cool, and it brings a bit of like a bump up to the excitement level of the game, I think, when it occurs. So making it happen more often, just be ready for unexpected 2-round combats where you have the players crit 3 times in a half dozen or a dozen rolls.
I would say very similar to what Puffin Forest, what Ben did, Nub Nub, when he summoned a huge group of wolves and the fight was over in like 2 seconds. And Doug was like, wow.
Yeah, I didn't get to run up a tree. Yeah, it was that fast. It was like, bam.
I definitely don't feel like handing out feats, especially if you're constructing your own feats, or even better, using the pre-existing feats in the game system. I really don't feel like you're going to deal with too much imbalance. I don't feel like you're going to break the game by being like, oh, here's some feats. Like, that's not going to be the end of the world. There's really nothing in the selection of feats that would make me as a GM be like, ugh.
Oh, alertness. Alert is so awesome. +5 initiative. It's good times.
Brian Smith says, as a player, if you've got feats, I feel like it's fair to let the player remember those bonuses. easier than the DM knowing all the base rules and who has what feat. Oh, absolutely. And I will say, I guess you could almost call me lazy for this. I am very reliant on my players being, at least one or two of my players being knowledgeable. I always want to have the rules lawyer at the table who's like, technically, this is how it works. Some people cringe over that. I absolutely adore that person.
It's like, thank you for letting me know what actually is supposed to happen.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, really? That's how it... Okay, cool. It still happens this way, but I appreciate pointing that out. So, yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to ignorantly break the rules. You want to purposefully break them.
I'd like to be intentional.
Yes, I want to intentionally change the rule here, or the ruling. Yeah, so that's I haven't even answered the question, have I? Okay, so my take on it.
We're addressing it one piece at a time.
Yeah. Okay, so my part in that is, if you're going to, let's say, a quest reward, everybody gets a feat or a stat bump, basically like a freebie. Kind of like, epic boons can sometimes be that kind of stuff, but it might be 8th level or something. And they're like, oh, well, I want to use the feats more. Or I want to get more heroic level characters. I don't see an issue at all if you let everybody attain that. But if it's like, oh, you decided you were absent that week or something, like the weekend that everybody gained fire resistance to like bolster themselves. Everybody drank a potion and gained fire resistance. Well, I wasn't there that weekend, so I just got it for free.
Yeah. I did a Bloodlines thing for a really long time, where basically once you got, I think back then we were doing like 12th level, but basically once your character got to 12th level, you were considered super max level, and you could use, I would give you like stat bonuses or benefit levels or whatever you wanted. You could apply those to your next character. So I had all kinds of crazy stuff going on. I had a guy who made a 1st level fighter, and he was like, I saved this really cool set of armor and I want to give it to this new character. And I'm like, cool, you retire your 12th level character, you get a 1st level character with a suit of +4 full plate. This is going to be interesting. Like, so yeah.
Yeah, so I think if it's across the board, everyone's getting a stat bump or a feat, you can hand that out. That's not. And if you wanted to increase the threat range of everything, again, not a big deal. Just be, on your end, be prepared. Now, if the enemy's crit range, you're just making it more like critical hits can happen more often. It becomes kind of a more dangerous game at that point. Because for higher level stuff, it's kind of there's like a level gap where game's really dangerous, game's way less dangerous, game's dangerous again, and you put it where the foes are critting more often. That increases the danger, the threat level range for the different levels for sure.
Well, I think that's definitely a section of the game where you'd want player contrast. You'd want to be like, here's your new feat, you have an increased crit range. I'm not going to immediately make adjustments to creatures to compensate for that, because I want you to get some mileage out of it. I want you to feel like, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm so powerful. I just chopped a guy in half with my 2-hander. I crit all the time. This is gross. But I don't want you, after you've had your adventure or two of enjoying that, I don't want to take all the excitement out of it and completely kill it for you by being like, yeah, you just dominate everything now. Because then it's not fun anymore. I'm basically handing you everything on a silver platter.
It's like handing people too many I almost said Monty Hall. Handing too many people magic items and then being like, oh, my game's all messed up because they're all decked out with +3 everythings.
Yeah.
I was like, well, that's kind of one of those things you could have seen coming in a way.
Brian Smith said rules lawyers at your table are like Highlanders.
There can be only one.
But it's true though. It's true. You get the two competing, especially at cons. Well, technically speaking, and then the other one goes, actually, in the errata, oh no, but updated in the forums posted by Mike Merles, which is a newer version of the errata, and eventually someone wins and a head goes flying and there's lightning everywhere. So yeah, I agree. It's very much
the quickening, the nerdening. So it's important, I think, to have somebody available to at least check the rules while you're going through stuff, because it's really handy to not break immersion and everything that's going on with you as the DM, to have somebody to, like,
especially if I've just screwed something up.
Oh yeah.
If I've just messed something up and someone points it out, I want to fix it immediately. I have no care about whether I'm wrong or not. If I'm wrong, fine, I'm wrong. Let's fix it, because now that player is going to feel robbed because I did something wrong and messed something up for them.
Well, yeah. If it was something that they thought, this is the way my character works, and then you tell them, well, no, I've got this idea. Like one of the players was like, do you do identify differently than in the player's handbook and how I've seen it done in Adventure League? And I'm like, yes, and I did not tell anybody that before the game started, so I'm sorry if you took identify thinking it was going to be like the uber analyze spell that it is now.
But with this person's GM 911, if you want to homebrew something and you want to introduce something into the game system, just try and weigh it out in your hands, figure it out. And honestly, err on the side of caution. And in this case, err on the side of the players. You're like, sure, I'll give out feats and higher crit values. So you give that to your players. Let them be overpowered for an adventure rather than punishing them really badly because you gave them that. So err on the side of caution, err on the side of, I didn't make the adventure tough enough for you in order to compensate for these new abilities I gave you, but I can do better next time. You know, next adventure I'll up my game. But I definitely wouldn't be like, and total party kill. I thought your abilities would be able to handle this. Sorry, everyone. Identify equals Google. Hi, Kiba, Brian Smith. I saw more people. There's a Chris S in here. Chris S.
Hi, everybody. All right, so we have an incognito GM 911.
Incognito GM 911. Okay.
So this GM has a player. Well, probably because somebody people watch Nerdarchy together, or they, the group watches it at some point. So the player's got a monk, and they've got other players in the party that, casters, martial classes, that the monk's feeling kind of meh, which I can see someone playing a monk feeling that way. But I also think monks are a pretty good, strong class. So, because I like doing things like jumping around and doing ninja stuff. So, to me, it's like, woohoo, I have cooler abilities than a fighter, is what I think to myself. And deflecting arrows and missile weapons and stuff. Anyway.
Your microphone is fluctuating. You probably want to get it closer.
Yeah, it's not aimed directly at me. I just noticed.
Here we go.
Come closer, microphone.
Come closer.
How's that?
All right, go ahead. Much better.
All right, so the person's gotten like a few magic items to enhance or emphasize monk things. And so they're toying with the idea of giving them a kind of black razor equivalent, but in the form of like something that the monk can use, rather than, I think black razor is like a two-handed sword or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And whatever the artifact is. So he's wanting to know, he or she is wanting to know, is this a bad idea? And I say, And there's other things, is that I don't, do they show off kind of like how non-multi-class monks or other types of monks can be powerful without all this extra stuff stacked on top of it? So asking for advice. So I would say, first off, I don't think this problem is going to be fixed with a magic item, especially not a magic item that's way more powerful than I would expect. Well, I don't. You know what? I don't know the level of the party, so perhaps it is in line with other things. Maybe there hasn't been a monk weapon that is on par with the other magic items. So if that's the case, that could be a situation. But it sounds like it's more of the person's feelings on what the aspects of the monk are, rather than, they're seeing like, oh, I don't get this many attacks with its great sword, so damage dice wise, I don't have this damage potential. Or,
yeah, exactly.
you know, I can only use a weapon that does a d6, so... Well, I mean, it's a monk weapon. I guess so as you get levels, it can go up higher. So it's eventually going to do a decent amount of damage, and you get a good amount of attack. So anyway, overall, maybe they're not using their Kai points. You know, maybe if it's the end of the day, yes, key, curses, Nerdarchy Dave. So maybe they're not using all their key points. Maybe because if it's at the end of the day and they still have, you know, the sorcerers blasted all their dang, I can't remember what metamagic points, whatever the heck they're called,
Yes.
sorcery points. If they've used all their sorcery points, sorcery, and the fighter's down to a few hit dice left, and they use their action surge, and the wizard's kind of tapped down on spells, but the monk's sitting there with, you know, 50% plus of its key points, and then then you're gonna have a situation. Well, they didn't utilize all the stuff they could. Do you know what I mean? So
I would definitely want to talk to this player about what exactly is going on. What is the deficit that they see? If this is I'm a monk and you haven't given me anything, but everybody else has like magic swords and magic wands and all this other crap, I want something, then sure, absolutely. There's a deficit. Let me give you some magic items. That's not the end of the world. I don't care. If there is a power issue, every time we get into a fight, the warrior kills 10 things, the wizard kills 10 things, the sorcerer kills 10 things, the cleric heals everyone and feels useful, and I punched one thing and it took 2 rounds for me to kill it. If that's your problem, maybe you sit down with that player and help them work on some of the character choices as far as abilities and stuff. Did you not get high enough stats maybe, or you know, like what is missing from your character? We can work on it.
Yeah, that's a good point. If let's say you decided to spread yourself out, or you wanted to be the face character but also wanted to be a monk. Well, a monk has a lot of stats they need, I would say. But the ones they definitely need, I feel like they're going to need Dex, they're going to need Wisdom, and if they want to have more hit points, they're going to need Constitution. So there's 3 right there that they're out the gate. They need pretty high stats in that. And that Wisdom and Dex are going to make or break your armor class. And I mean, do we need to go down the list of all the cool things Monk gets throughout the levels? I mean, eventually, don't you get every what is that? You get you can spend key points to reroll a saving throw. And that's just spend a key point. That is not once per short rest, once per long rest. That is spend a renewable resource to just gain, well, that's practically magic resistance, but for everything that you roll a save for.
But there's lots of context here.
Yeah.
We have to, what if this is my 12-year-old brother and he has no idea what he's doing with the monk, and I really want this kid to have an excellent time. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, maybe this is lack of knowledge. I use the word ignorance to describe things that people don't know. I am ignorant of C++. I know some of it, but I am not a professional by any stretch of the imagination, so I'm ignorant. Maybe he is ignorant of just what the monk class can do, and needs to be, maybe the GM could sit down and tutor him a little bit on it.
Almost everything can do.
Are you saying I'm ignorant of almost everything?
No. I'm saying, they get evasion.
Yeah.
They can take an action eventually and just end a charmed or frightened effect.
Yeah.
They become immune to disease and poison. You know, like poison damage. You no longer fear flying snakes.
It's seriously, maybe it's a lack of information. I would definitely sit down and talk to the player about their character and the choices they'd make. If the player is staunchly like, no, I love my character, I just hate the fact that I can't use a 2-handed axe, I would try and look at the root of the problem. I would definitely try and work with the player to come up with a solution. And if at the end of the day, if the rest of the table is like, we really want Nate to have fun and Nate's not having fun, GM fix it, then I'll just give him a magic item. Like if the rest of the party is impartial and he is dead set or she is dead set on that new magic item, then that's what you get. Let's do it. Let's make it happen. We'll have an adventure about the magic item and I get to have fun too then.
Yeah, and if it's an issue with your choice of weapon, well, it's like, well, then maybe allow them to change their archetype.
Right.
Maybe they could be a Kensai instead of I don't know, Drunken Master or whatever they are.
The character does not have to be written in stone. We can edit things.
I mean, I would consider that as something, doable. I've had people switch Warlock patrons. There were story elements that allowed them to do it as well, but they wanted to, and it was like, well, you know what? You haven't even really used the abilities from the thing you had, or anyway, so it's kind of irrelevant to the story, to the mechanics, to pretty much everything except the fact that it says it on your character sheet right now.
Yeah.
So let's just erase it and put the new thing. So I would say, options, switching to a different archetype. I would say options, kind of like going through, maybe watch a few monk videos so you can kind of give them pointers on ways of using monk and cool different things. Also, there's the different broader archetypes that, especially the commonality of the names brought to you for MMOs, where you have like the striker, you've got the tank. Well, a monk is like it's like the bard, but against everything that happens in the game. So like a bard's like a jack of all trades. Like the monk is like the jack of all, whatever you're going to throw at me, I probably am resistant or just don't do it. Just don't take it.
Yeah.
In the end, they're eventually immune to aging and all this other kind of stuff. So they transcend. So it's way different than the fighter that just gets better at swinging a sword. So
Get
keep
them
that.
To watch some Dragon Ball Z, apparently.
Yeah, I mean,
Chris S said it's over 9,000. Over 9,000.
So keep that in mind and consider perhaps switching archetypes if that could fix the problem.
And if anyone in chat has some questions that they'd like to see addressed, please throw them at us. We'd love to address your questions. We're literally going down a list of the GM 911s that we have available. But if you guys have weird questions, you want to trip us up, bring it on. We're ready. How about a fighter focused in demoralization, intimidation? I literally wrote a thing for that.
Oh, you did?
Oh yeah, because but mine's a mutant, right? Because
it's an interesting way to start off.
Well, mine's always a mutant because I was like, it's really cool that the bard has abilities and gets to use those abilities the way it does, but I don't really want the musical instrument thing. I don't really want the singing thing. What if it was just someone with like a really inspiring presence that could just say cool stuff like, they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom. That guy's a bard in that case. He definitely gave everyone in that army +1 to hit and +1 on their saving throws. I mean, guaranteed after that speech. Like, so I was like, what if we did like a warrior thing with that? So mine's a little bit of a mutant, but yeah. Well, Constitution saves for Dwarven Ale, needed or cliche? You drink Dwarven Ale, you have to take a Constitution save, or you are instantaneously trashed out of your mind unless you're a dwarf. What's it going to be?
I would definitely say it's cliche, but that doesn't mean you don't need to use it. So, hey, sometimes...
What about like elven wine, fairy wine?
Oh, yeah, fey wine, that kind of stuff. Those things tend to be strong, like mythically strong. I think
if you're immortal, you want to drink 1 cup of wine and be drunk for 3 days. That's...
Otherwise, you got to, especially think about the alcohol tolerance you've built up over 1,000 years. They're gonna have to like wheel in kegs for each person, like double wine glass hat things for everybody. And that's just
a question.
That's just inelegant. So elves wouldn't do that.
Kiba the Barbarian, One Punch Saitama in Dungeons and Dragons. I actually went to the last convention dressed as One Punch Man. I have pictures of that somewhere.
Okay,
on my Twitter account. Actually.
This might sound a little weird, but if I was gonna make a person that could take somebody out in one punch, I would pick Swashbuckler.
If you made One Punch Man in Dungeons and Dragons, the key to that character would not be any amount of stats. It would be role playing. Because most of the time, he wouldn't want to bother with most stuff. It's the core of that character is that he's trying to find an opponent that's worthy of his time and energy. So Saitama would essentially be looking for a Tarask to fight. And even then, he probably wouldn't feel challenged. So he's walking the prime material plane just completely uninspired because he's probably going to beat a Tarask. And he's probably going to beat a Kraken. So he would just be wandering around hoping a 20th level barbarian ran up to him and wanted to start a fight. Like his stats almost wouldn't be important. He'd never get involved in anything.
All right. Well, I don't know anything about that character except that he punches things.
He's okay. So One Punch Man, the premise, we'll give a super tiny premise of the character. The character essentially has superpowers, wanted to be the best. He thinks Superman. He wanted to be the best superhero ever. And he became the best superhero ever, but now he's so good that he just wanders around with kind of a blank stare because he's bored. Nobody is good enough. Mm-hmm. Nobody is a challenge. And because of the fact that nobody is a challenge, he's lost all of his zeal for what he was doing. Now he's stuck in this position where he's the best superhero that's ever existed, but there's nobody to be a superhero against. So it's a very empty experience.
It's like Batman needs Joker kind of thing.
I think Batman could kill the Joker and be just fine without, but that's different.
I don't know.
If I were Batman, I'd have strung that guy up a long time.
He does a really good job at not killing him for however many decades.
Side of your head. After I saw the Joker stick a bouncy ball in a baby's mouth so it would start to choke to death.
Oh.
Yeah. After I saw him do that, I was like, he's dead. He's dead. That Joker's toast. Next time I run into him, batarang in the eye. Snap his spine, Bane style.
Well, there you go.
Animal. Put him down.
So, in that instance, he would then be left wandering the area. Okay, so I picked Swashbuckler because you get certain things that are going to kind of mechanically add to that, one-on-one punch a guy, he's done. And I guess you could do, I would just say let him punch people. Take Tavern Brawler or something like that, so you've got an unarmed attack. Or, Monk, Swashbuckler. And then I would just go with that. Mm-hmm. Stunning Fist, that kind of, like, Sneak Attack and Stunning Fist. That's pretty cool. And you know what? I did Swashbuckler before, and there's sometimes where you really do just hit somebody once and they're done.
Cody Sams said One Punch Man is easy. It's a belt of Storm Giant strength. With a 29 strength, you could sucker punch a dragon unconscious. So thank you, Cody Sams. That would be a very quick, easy way to do that.
Mm.
Maybe One Punch Man wanted a challenge in life and is a character that wanted a challenge, and then, like Joxer from Xena, but he got a belt of Storm Giant strength and got everything he ever wanted. Now he's disillusioned.
All right, so this is a general. I'm paring this down because it's a long read from
all right.
Isaac, and basically, somehow this DM let their monk have a 24 dex. which
somehow he snuck it in.
That's not important to the problem he now has.
Yeah.
Is that so? He's got a 24 dex. Probably said 20 for caps. Nonsense. Get that out of here.
Yeah.
Anyway, I mean, now you're punching, and with a 24 dex, you're adding what, +7 to damage and +7 to attack, plus your proficiency.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this thing called bound accuracy in fifth edition, and it basically keeps the armor classes kind of low and keeps the attacks kind of low. So we don't have to have this 45 armor class here or this +50 to hit here.
In game design, it's called a weight system.
Oh, wait, yeah. I say bound accuracy, but in game design, general terms, weight system. So when you go beyond that and you go above that weight system, or you unbalance the weight system.
Yes.
You're going to have a character that's going to outshine a lot of things.
So
the monsters, other players.
What is the GM? I definitely see someone with a 24 dexterity who gets into combat overshadowing the rest of the group. But what specifically was the GM 911? What exactly was he asking for? Like, how do I deal with the monster I created?
Well, he's got issues with the other characters kind of feeling like meh. Like, what are we this guy's going around punching everything to death. And they're all kind of like slogging through, but just not feeling that thing. So he's got some solutions, and he kind of wanted to have us take a look at it.
Okay, I'm ready. I'm ready for solutions. Let's hear what he came up with.
Well,
this is exciting.
The first one is give everybody nuclear weapons, which is make everyone else equally strong.
No.
So add magic items or skill books that are going to increase. Give the barbarian a belt of storm giant strength. See where I'm going here.
So should I make the problem worse? Don't do that.
So, okay, well, perhaps socially you're going to think to yourself, I would think to myself, I have made a problem. I have unbalanced the game. One of my players is basically making it look like all the other players are kind of second rate.
Mm-hmm.
So as a GM, I'd be like, I need to fix this. And I would rather fix it fast than not fix it at all. And that is a fast solution. Give everybody kind of like that tier level power. And go with it. So there's... Let's see. Okay, so there's another thing is maybe giving him something that is eventually going to off the character, like possibly a cursed item that will lead them down a strange path.
No.
Yeah, so I'm like, no, I wouldn't want to do that either. It's kind of like I've got a fire in my house. How do I put it out? Well, a fire hose will work, but everything else in your house will be ruined.
Yeah, see, here's the thing. You gave the player, as the GM, as the judge, you gave the player the ability to have that stat. And now you're offering to punish that player because of a choice you made. You could have said no. So punishing that player is absolutely out of the question. Powering everyone else is not a great idea. I would say start to develop some set of circumstances to help dictate what that power can be used for. One of my preferred mediums, if you want to mitigate an overpowered player, give them the option for more power. Make it a choice they have to make, but it's going to keep them out of the... Here's a great example. Nate, your character has 24s in every stat. If you're one of my players, I'm going to offer you something else that makes you even more powerful. Would you like to be a vampire? Right?
Oh,
so you're going to toss... Yeah, so you toss in vampirism into the mix. But now you're useless during the day, and the other players have to watch you.
Like lug a coffin around.
Right, have to lug... So now you're a detriment. The only time you're valuable is at night. Now I've put your character into a little box. Now I have control of that character again, and you're not running my campaign. So give them some kind of power. Give them some kind of power with a serious drawback and give them the choice. They'll take it. If you offer someone power 90% of the time, they'll be like, nom, 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 nom.
So now this didn't just happen willy-nilly. This happened because a deck of many things was involved.
For God's sake.
I missed that part. And they just happened to draw the wish card.
Oh, dear Lord.
So that's how they kind of like systematically figured out, this is how I get a 24 decks. Bam, I've got it.
Yeah.
So that's unfortunate because a deck of many things is pretty much a great way to end your campaign. As far as that's my opinion.
Yeah.
That's wholly my opinion. It may also be Kienata's, but
I'm hardcore monkey paw with wishes. I'll give you as many wishes as you want, but don't think for a second that I'm going to be nice about it. It's a wish. That power that granted the wish came from somewhere, and they probably didn't want to just give it away to some random person. So if you got a wish, I'm monkey pawing it. You're going to pay for it. You say, I want to be really strong. I'm going to make you smell really strong.
This is pretty good. He made the books, the DM made the books appear on, and they were on fire. Like they showed up, the manuals to make his decks higher showed up on fire, and it took 3 times longer to read them because they were burnt. I was like, that's nice. I like that little addition. Yeah, but in the end, the guy ends up with a 24 decks, and yeah, +7. It's gonna be hairy to deal with. I would not like target this character for elimination. That's gonna feel really beat. So that's kind of off the table, I would say, if I was trying to solve this problem.
They can't use their wishes for stats. There's no you can't do that now.
Perhaps that would have been the best way.
Yeah.
Also, you could have considered they've gotten 3 wishes, but they have to deal with the same percentage chance that they can no longer do wishes. That comes with Wish, the spell. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you use it for something strange, there's a chance you can never cast Wish again. And there's also other things that go along with it. So it could have been a big ordeal. But anyway, all that aside, I would say main thing is don't punish this character because you put a deck of many things in. They had they had their random chance to be punished as it stood. It just happened to be your game was the game they drew wishes in.
Yeah, and now your challenge as games masters to compensate for divine power. And
there are ways. AC 22 is not insurmountable. That's what the character has right now. And +7 to extra, a +7 total to hit and damage. It's only 2 extra over what you'd have as a 20. Damage, not big deal. To
plus
hit
proficiency.
Well, I mean, but you would only have. It's only a difference of 2 from having a 20 to having a 24.
I would offer to make the player a werewolf.
It adds up.
I'm serious.
You're like, what else? How much rope would you need to hang yourself?
I would go straight to you're infected. You can get rid of the curse. And they're going to be like, no, I don't want to get rid of the curse. And I'd be like, you have control of your lycanthropy, except for on full moons. And then every full moon, they would start dealing with a body count. If I felt like a moral quandary could work for them, either that or vampirism. I mean, there are tons of things you can give people that are powerful that suck.
Yes. Well, they're already powerful. I don't think they want to make them more powerful. So my solution involves not giving everybody stuff. My solution involves not targeting the player.
Yeah, don't target him. That's not nice.
There are many ways to feel useless as a character that can just do damage and has an IAC. Mm-hmm. Monk's a little tougher because they get better saving throws for things. They get a lot of abilities. They're a good, rain or shine kind of character. They've got a lot of variability and ways of getting out of messy situations. But there's ways that they're not just going to be able to handle very well. So anything that's going to target them, that they don't have that save, something that's going to not care about your AC, like area effects type stuff. Now they have evasion, so there's a lot of like things that like a monk's kind of a tough character to nail down sometimes. So there's also other things where giving them exhaustion, if you find ways of giving them exhaustion, that can kind of put a kink in their step. There's other ways of dealing and messing with that character and damaging that character, that isn't going to screw them for the rest of the campaign, but it isn't also like, you know, giving staffs of magi and storm giant strength out to people to like make it the difference. Now you could do that as an option if you wanted to equalize the playing field. You could, but I strongly...
He just read a book and got a stat point?
Yeah, the manuals. He wished for some manuals and he got some other thing. And I would say, and that's one of the ways you get it above 20, is reading the manuals, from what I understand. So,
yeah.
So basically, the deed's already kind of been done. So unless you hamper them in some way, now you could say, like, look, you just randomly drew these 3 wishes, and I let this stuff slide, but I really should have in some way hemmed you in, and every other person in the game's kind of like looking at you and annoyed. So you could improve the general atmosphere of the game by just taking a little step back, maybe being like, well, you know, totally wasn't legit to have 2 of these manuals, even if it was a wish. You know, stuff like that. So that's another conversation you can have, is like, hey, could you just weaken your character a little bit, because it's beyond the regular game rules.
That's really hard, though.
Yeah, I would say so.
Really hard. That's walk up to a 7-year-old, hand them an ice cream cone, and then be like, "It's too much ice cream," and throw half away in the garbage. The child will weep. There will be no, oh, at least
I don't know the age group nor the veteran status of the player. I don't know if it's their first games ever, and this is like their 3rd or 5th session, or if they've been playing for 20 years. But I almost feel like if they've been playing for 20 years, they shouldn't have been wishing for 2 manuals of quick actions, because they should know what's going to happen. They're going to be ridiculous compared to all the other players.
This is just a cautionary tale to everyone. Stay away from the deck of many things.
Yeah.
Don't do drugs, kids.
As a GM, don't put it out there. Okay, this is the thing. It's like asking for a skill check that you need your players to pass for the game to continue. Don't ask them for that damn skill check. Don't ask them for it. You know, just have them succeed at it, or figure it out, so you can just be like, oh yeah, and because of you're really skilled in investigation and such, you get access to this. So don't mess with that. If you want your players to find something, don't put a barrier that may stop them from getting it. Similarly, if you don't want to screw up your game, I would suggest not using a deck of many things.
I have other questions. Cody Sams asks, oh wait, no, Cody Sams did not ask. My question moved. Brian Smith asks, question, can you guys go through the most important points of running a successful one-shot? My group has played 3 different campaigns that have fizzled out. I have, bar none, the most important. If you're running a one-shot, pre-generated characters, baby, all day long. There's from running D&D games at conventions, pre-generated characters. Here's a selection of 12 characters. Please select who you'd like to play. So, yeah.
I missed the question. I'm going to need it again because I'm like looking for it. I'm like, where is it?
Kung Fu chop you in the neck. Nate and I played video games together this morning. It was rowdy.
I feel like I was murdered several times on purpose.
Brian Smith, you weren't. He was. Question: can you guys go through the most important points of running a successful one shot? My group has played 3 different campaigns that have fizzled out.
Successful one shot. Yes. If you're playing with people you don't know, pre-generated characters. Choices for that. And if you let someone, basically that way, someone has to ask you if they can run a particular character. And you can say, I don't know, let me see it. So that way you're not just blanket letting whatever through.
And it sounds like you have your own group to work with right now. That's a huge benefit to you because you understand what your players want, what they might like to do. But for real, in the context of, I don't know any of the people that I have 8 names of people that have signed up Jennifer and Bob and Nate and Neil and Fred and Cindy all signed up for my Dungeons and Dragons game, and I'm going to run them on a 4-hour adventure. Nobody's bringing their own characters. I don't know anybody. Cindy could be the most bloodthirsty, hardcore power gaming rules lawyer I've ever seen in my life. She gets a pre-gen. Like, everyone gets a pre-gen. You pick the gender after you pick the character. I don't care what they are. You want to change the color of their eyes? Be my guest, but you're not picking new skills. So it's dangerous. It's so dangerous. After having a character at my table tell me that their traveling companion was a child, and then later revealing that the child was a metamorphed dragon, I was like, never again. This will never happen again. So, yeah.
Yeah. Kiba the Barbarian, make sure the players do not use some obscure homebrew techniques. Yes. Also, be like, this, it's 5e, like, out of the book, these books.
Yes.
To pick your point.
I love the +1 rule.
Oh, yeah, the plus, yeah.
+1 is great. You may use the core books, +1. I would also take a look at why, if you've run 3 campaigns, every time you start a campaign and get to that second adventure, you did something in the first game session that got your players involved enough to want to be in the second game session. So what happened there that wasn't happening later on? Did the players get complacent? Did they find some overarching storyline really boring and they just liked the idea of something new? Because I've had lots of groups like that where they want something new every single game session. So instead of telling big overarching stories, every single one of my game sessions is a comic book. And other than the fact that the players get to take their character from one game session to the next, they're essentially just playing a really long string of one-shots. Mm-hmm. So I would definitely take a look at what the players want out of it. Cardboard Fortress.
Hey, Cardboard Fortress. Lord Mean Puppy. When someone asks about D&D wiki content, shudders. It's true. Some of that stuff's pretty far out there. Yeah, Cody Sands. I forgot to mention my belt buckle is the key to the Holy Grail. And so, yeah, there's a lot of complications with letting people bring in the characters willy-nilly without any boundaries besides, you know, it's D&D 5e and X level. So one of the things with that, with running a one-shot, I would say if running a one-shot, I have 5 encounters, only 2 or 3 of which I expect to have occur. And by this I mean I want a little variability to the game so that different play styles, a lot of times I don't know what play styles people are going to bring. So different play styles are going to lend themselves to picking different routes to solving what I see as the kind of like quest or issue that's going to be hopefully resolved during the one shot. So if you're with a group of people, I mean, you still never know what the players are going to do. So at the end, I always plan for 5 encounters, 2 of which happen definitely out of the 5, and maybe an optional third one out of that, based on the direction they choose to solve an issue or the direction they go. I've played my Night Terrors game, which I've been meaning to finish writing and putting up on the actual Nerdarchy website as a product. But as of right now, it's just a whole bunch of notes in a Word document. But I've played that 5 times now, I think, at different conventions and for different fan groups. And I have not played the same game twice. And even though several of the groups have solved the problem in a very similar fashion, it was a very different way they got there. And then 2 of the groups didn't even, like, I had to make up a way because of how far afield they went. But so if you want to keep it more rigid and more like running, a campaign adventure out of the abyss or something like that, or like, Castle Ravenloft or whatever, that kind of thing, then I would say still kind of have like at least 3 or 4 encounters, consider that 2 of them are going to happen in the one shot based on if it's like 3 or 4 or 5 hours. And then also have either skill challenges or some other way that people are going to be able to utilize their stuff rather than hit something with a sword.
Yeah.
Because
another thing that I've run into a lot with more modern players, especially people who, say for instance, they played D&D for 5 or 6 years, and then they played MMOs for 5 or 6 years, and now they're in their mid-20s and they want to get back into D&D again. There are a lot of concepts they will take from MMOs, and when they play Dungeons and Dragons, they won't be able to put their finger on what's bothering them, but they will say something. I'm sick of this character. I don't want to run this adventure anymore. I'm not excited about what we're doing. I'm bored. Suddenly they're missing game sessions. My universal solution to this: use a more complex character generation system and use a more complex character growth system. Every single time they achieve a new level, they should be able to see some visible, tangible amount of growth. This will keep them involved. This will prevent character stagnation. And this will give them a goal every single time they level up. If you do even odd, so every odd level, they get a bonus to this thing over here, and every even level, they get a bonus to that thing over there. They'll constantly be reaching for those new bonuses and constantly be pushing for ways to level up. I rewrote all the stuff myself, but it's not complex. It's very easy to rewrite character classes and stuff for 5e. So a more complex character generation system can go a long way. It's what modern video game players are most accustomed to, and the most consistent notion that you will see people bring to the table if they're accustomed to playing PC games like Skyrim or World of Warcraft or any of those titles. They'll be like, well, what's my character get, or how does my character grow? And if you say, well, you leveled up, you get a couple more hit points, they're going to get bored really quick.
Yeah, what was it? Scott Garibay, who played with us a while back, when he ran games for us, it was like 6 episodes. That was the story arc. You could take it. It didn't matter. You could start at first and be 17th by the end of 6 episodes, or you could start at 5th or 10th and be 17th, whatever the progression, but always gaining some kind of magic item, always gaining some kind of thing going on. So it was very action oriented in the accumulation of either powers, things, levels, that kind of stuff, and basically like maintaining a level of action to develop. Maintain a level of development to the characters to keep interest at a minimum, like to keep interest, and then whatever the characters did on top of that, as far as role playing and their own character development, that was just extra. So there is something to be said about, engaging the players through their characters, through statistics, alteration, as well as character development. So it's really, I agree. First, I'll read off a comment from Cardboard Fortress and one from Mighty Hob that go very nicely hand in hand. Maintaining the player's interest has to be part of the player's responsibility as well, though. Role-playing is a social contract, not a purchase product. And then the Mighty Hob said, give the players villains they can hate, which goes into the players motivated to come back to the table and play and maintained interest because there's a villain they want to stab in the neck. And that could apply to any number of things. There's a new creature I want to kill. There's a new ability I want to use. There's a new situation I want to solve. So, but yeah. I was reading Cody Sam's comment. Entertain me, peasant.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like
entertain me, peasant.
How some player characters think, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, there is a lot of people who have never GM'd don't know what it's like to run the game.
Mm-hmm.
So people can be like, I'm bored, and you're thinking, yeah, I've been running for 5 hours, and there's a little bit of give and take that has to happen here. I can't electroshock your brains to stimulate excitement at the same time as doing all this other stuff that's going on. So there's a certain level of, give and take on the player's part to make the game more interesting.
Cardboard Fortress says, I agree the amount of dull dead levels in 5e is really egregious to me, though. Well, that's part of the thing, right? Part of it's the player is supposed to be engaged and to help tell the story. The GM is supposed to craft a setting and help tell the story. But mechanically, there are a lot of players that would really like something to sink their teeth into. They would like to make meaningful choices in player growth, and game systems just haven't adapted to that concept yet as far as tabletop gaming is concerned, the way that video games have. And at some point we should be seeing a change in the dynamic of tabletop games where you'll start to see game systems that are adapting very nicely and giving you meaningful choices all the way through leveling. So
all right. Off to another topic. I read this and I'm like, oh my gosh, yes. Let's see. Christopher Perkins, GM91 question for you, Nate. What are your thoughts on Astral Dragons? As soon as I read it, I was like, I have many excited thoughts on Astral Dragons.
Not Forgotten Realms Astral Dragons or just regular? Because technically in Forgotten Realms there really wouldn't be an Astral Dragon. That's literally what a gold dragon is.
Really? In Forgotten Realms? Well, okay, let's just say I didn't know that.
They fly around with their god. Okay, let's do yeah.
Okay, well, I didn't have one made, but I would really enjoy that, especially if they're like, are they beyond? Are they transcendent? Are they dragons, almost psychic, like demi-liches, kind of, where
we're gonna go psychic. You can go ham with this.
Gonna go psychic. Yeah, would they be psionic in nature? I would be interested in exploring that. I like the idea of them being like beyond, or perhaps like a dragon essence rather than dragons as they are in the prime material. Maybe there's a part of a dragon when they die that gets kind of crystallized and forms someplace in the astral sea. And
maybe then stuck in a tree by a zombie creating druid or cleric.
That could also happen, and that might lead to hey, you're derailing me here.
Go ahead.
So I like the idea perhaps of doing some kind of lore where an astral dragon is formed from the death of a dragon, and that because of their powerful magical presence on the prime material, that's like connects them in a way towards this point in the astral sea, and they kind of coalesce in some way there. So a part of them remains maybe not like a spirit, but like a transparency, like a not a transparency, like
the dragon is so powerful, such a force of energy and life and magic and death in the prime material plane that when it dies, some of its essence still persists in the prime material plane.
Well, some of its essence still persists.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like when a boat passes, there's a wake. So almost like an astral dragon could be the wake of the death of an actual dragon.
Dude, see, now that's awesome. We're talking force of nature stuff here. That's epic. That could work. Well done, sir.
So that's the way I would go. That's where I would start for what an astral dragon is. I have to think about it a little further on what I'd actually like to see and what it actually is. Like,
did we ever talk about
how that kind of crunch works?
Did we ever talk about psionics rules?
No,
we didn't.
No, I mean, we talked about it a while back where we talked about some psionic stuff, but we didn't get into it too much. But okay. Sorry I don't have a complete answer for that, but I hope that's a cool start, Christopher Perkins. And thank you for the question.
How is that different than a ghost dragon?
Well, astral things aren't ghosts, right? So it's different as in like it's a completely different existence, I would say. It depends on what you think of as a ghost. I guess is a ghost the spirit that's attached to the prime material of a creature that's passed, or is it an echo of the thing that was, and the thing that was is actually gone? So I mean, like ghosts in 5e I think it's the form, the latter, where it's no, it's the one where it's an actual spirit or essence of the thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say it's not that. It is like a manifestation of. It's like a manifestation, like that happens because of what the dragon is, not like a ghost.
Did Chris S. said, "Calm down, Nate. Calm down. Take it easy."
Okay, so Christopher Perkins. Yes, dragons are born in the astral plane. Did a little back history on it, and they look pretty neat. Supposedly older than ancient dragons. All right. So you're saying for astral dragon, you would say that it was kind of like how there are dead gods floating in the astral sea, like that kind of thing. That like there are ancient things within the astral, like on the level of the deities, that kind of thing.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
It's a really good question.
Sure.
Which edition had your favorite psionics? Second edition. Go ahead.
I really liked second edition the most because of the options you had. But I enjoyed them applying more of a game balance concept to psionics in later edition.
Yeah.
But
Second
I also
ed was
kind
not
of
balanced in any way whatsoever.
But I kind of felt it lost a little bit of the magic that I felt for psionics. Not because I could do super powerful things if I kind of power gamed it, but I liked
you didn't have to kind of power game it. You could nonchalantly power game it, and you were like killing people with mind bullets.
There was a whole bunch of ways to stink as a psionicist in second edition. It was very easy, but it was also
id?
Huh?
Id. Oh God, id something was one of the psychic attacks. You literally could walk into a town. No one would have any idea what was going on. There'd just be people falling over dead. You just walk into a town, standing in the middle of the town, and people are just falling over dead. No one has any idea why.
Okay, so what about Charm Person from second edition, buddy? If we're going to go that way.
Semantic. Verbal and semantic. You can literally play with a yo-yo and hum to yourself, and no one has any idea you're casting spells.
You could control the entire town with charm magic.
You listen here, sir.
If they were stupid enough, I mean, if their intelligence score was low enough, you could control an entire town with charm magic. So I don't want to hear it, Mister. What is it? Only psionics in second edition was unbalanced as far as you're concerned? I don't think so.
Oh God, it was so unbalanced. It was so bad.
So anyway, thematically, I loved second edition psionics. So when I worked on psionics as an example of what you could do with taking one of the classes and altering it to incorporate a different class or a different feel, and I used psionics as a kind of the case for taking a sorcerer and altering it to what you want it.
Who cares about id insinuation when you can give yourself big tiger claws?
Exactly.
That's what I did.
One of Ted's psionicists had a scorpion tail and pincers. I'm like, yep, that's awesome. Who cares about all that other stuff?
I can do what I don't care. I have giant tiger claws. Do I have to turn this power off?
I liked you could turn into an elemental eventually with the metamorphosis stuff. That was hot. Fire elemental was literally hot. So you've sidetracked me. I don't know what we were even talking about, except I want to talk about psionics now. See, this is bad.
It's okay. No, we can talk about psionics.
Gotta steer it.
We're here to answer questions. Anyone who has a question, we'd like to answer it. There was a psionics question.
Yes.
You answered it in a very fitting manner. Cardboard Fortress said, in my experience, the more balanced psionics are, the less people like them. I would argue that we did the mechanics that we worked on that night for the custom psionics. That was hotness. And those are well balanced. And I think people go ham over them.
Wait, what? Ham? What are they going ham over?
The psionics we worked on.
Oh. Cool.
I think people would love that.
Well,
but we're not allowed to talk about it. Is
we're
this more
not.
top
Yeah,
secret
it's
stuff?
we're still working on it.
Uh,
Because I don't even know what to talk about with it. That's how far away it is from looking done.
all right. Well, I have bards fallen in popularity. I have no idea.
I don't know. I think it fluctuates between groups with how popular bards are and who likes to play them. Do you know what I mean? Through the editions. So that's going to be my say for that.
I'm gonna crack open my custom classes and give you guys my favorite bard-like ability, and you can use it. That's what this will make your bards awesome again.
I think bards are pretty good as they are. So
They really are. They really are. I just have to find the right skill tree. Please continue.
So Chris asks, psionics isn't as varied as magic, but the power points and psi crystals focus, etc., make it way too OP. All right, so now in 5th edition, for example, wizards prepare spells. They have a book filled with, as long as they got the money to spend, whatever spells from wizard they want, and they can cast spells. They aren't locked into memorizing the spell slots for a particular spell. Like, I've got magic missile and detect magic. I can memorize detect magic twice or magic missile twice or one of each, but I'm locked into that for the day rather than
back. It's still not back. Boop-a-da-boop-a-da-boo.
I think
Should
we're
I
back
sing it
now.
a song?
Boopity-doo.
Oh, stream,
Weaver.
come back. I think we're back.
So, having a psionics discussion with old psionics, I think you'd have to also have a discussion on what magic was back then, and it's different than it is currently. And when you look at 3rd edition and you look at psi crystals and you look at power pool, but then you also consider wizards had basically familiars that were used. You could power game with familiars. It's like you get that toad, you get a whole bunch of hit points, you stick them in your pocket. That kind of thing. So when you had familiars that gave you stat bumps and things like that, and other benefits like that, compared to psi crystals, I really don't see that being crazy. You know what I mean? So let's see.
Okay, all right. So Cardboard Fortress said, to me, D&D player characters are intrinsically about combat to a large degree, and I would agree that when you're trying to define a Dungeons and Dragons character, a lot of what you're filling out on that character sheet is what do you do in combat. What bards do, the defining thing they do, much like classic rogues, feels like what an NPC is for, personal opinion.
Okay, so
it's an interesting take.
Okay, so about D&D combat system stuff.
Yes.
This is gonna maybe be a weird, I guess, loop into something. Weird. It's already weird.
You made it weird by calling it weird. Now it's weird. I'm uncomfortable.
All right. Well, here, be prepared to be more uncomfortable. So we have laws, and a lot of those laws are about getting punished for doing bad things. So, but would you say the world is about doing bad things? The laws, in a lot of ways, are playing field leveling in a way because of what they do and what they say you can and can't do. Do you know what I mean? So you've got the GM, I mean the Dungeons and Dragons combat system. The combat's one of the easiest ways to get killed. So if you don't have a lot of rules balancing that out, you're going to have player characters just be offed for just randomly because you didn't balance the system or you didn't account for certain situations that you should have because they're common. So basically, the D&D combat system is the common rule system of what's probably going to happen when people are fighting, and you want that to be balanced because you don't want 3 of the players running the roost with their characters because of the classes they picked, while you've got like the sage and the librarian and the guy who cleans the bar stool.
Well, I feel like what Cardboard Fortress was saying, and Cardboard Fortress, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, I hope, is that one of the fundamentals, one of the real focus points of the 5th edition game system is that a huge amount of it is about defining simulating combat. Now, that doesn't mean that that's the focus of gameplay. That merely means that was a large proportion of the rules are about defining combat. Now, this can be drawn in contrast to other game systems that do a huge amount of other rules definition, like social combat, where you have a variety of different social attributes that may or may not decrease or increase based on the kinds of choices your character makes. There's tons and tons of stuff. The focus in Dungeons and Dragons, though, isn't on social combat, isn't on role play like Mage the Ascension, where you talk about what you think a spell's going to do, and the GM says, that sounds good.
That's more like creative BSing.
Yeah,
that's role playing, creative BSing, whatever you want to call the Mage Ascension.
Yeah.
Well, I would argue that if you're going to have a game that has a large amount of social rules, you're actually restricting role playing more than a system that has heavy combat.
I've heard this argument before
because you're limited. There's a lot of imagination involved in what you can do in combat, but there's also not, because we're basically like simulating a lot of physics things going on in a way. It's like the percentage that you're going to affect somebody in combat and negatively based on your skill level, et cetera, et cetera. And then
I had an argument with a well-known game designer whose name I will not drop because that would be unkind, because he called me a very nasty name at the end of the argument. But I had an argument with him about it. And I said that a game with social combat could use social combat to help players who are not necessarily strong role players. Not everybody wants to have to voice act and be in character all the time. Some people just don't want to deal with that. They want to play D&D because they want to hear a cool story and they want to be part of the story, but they don't want to role play the whole thing out. So my argument was that for those people, a game that has social combat as a mechanic, a real viable mechanic, as fleshed out as D&D combat mechanics, for those people, that would be a wonderful thing. So, and he did not agree. He was very much on your side of the fence and had some choice words for me about how I played too many video games and I was young and stupid and didn't know anything. So
do you want the good answer, the neutral answer, or this NPC's a jerk answer? Yeah, I'm just like, I can see the dial as you're talking about it.
Yeah. So
it gave me a bit of so at that point, is that social the social combat aspect, does it need to be beyond something? Like what would be too restrictive in that sense? Because you're saying, well, this assists people that don't want to do all the role playing and stuff. I was like, well, I'd feel kind of cheated personally as a player playing a character, just a regular average character, if I came in contact with somebody who was really into the social combat aspect, and they're like, oh, I'm going to intimidate you with XYZ thing, or I'm going to persuade you for something stupid, and we're going to, it's basically, I don't want to see a system like that basically create the hack and slash version, the murder hobo version of the social combatist. I don't want to see that ever in D&D.
Well, and this is actually something I've been chastised for is I want everything role played out. So you're saying that you don't want the gamist stuff to interfere with role play. Mm-hmm. But the other day I said, I'm sorry, but you can make a skill check, but I'm still going to want you to role play some of that with me. Even if you're a terrible role player, I'll still ask you to role play some of that with me. Mm-hmm. And people were like, I would just get up and leave if you didn't let me do it with a skill check.
Well, I would say that that's too extreme, basically. Mm-hmm. And what was it? I had a sorceress. She has amazing charisma. That's the character. But the player is like trying to make an excuse for why their party's in the woods. And she's like, oh, we're all artists and we're drawing the essence of trees. And the bandit, mercenary guard kind of is like, the what of trees? But hey, you know what? She rolled a 20. So, hey, mm-hmm. Guess what? He was convinced that they were artists and they were doing something strange in the woods. And they were not adventurers and they were not trying to break into this place he's guarding. they're weird artist people, so he was just like, yeah, just do it someplace else. And they went around to the back and they broke in.
Nerditor Doug said, wasn't diplomacy, intimidate, etc. in 3.5 like that? Like you could dominate situations with high skill rolls of those things? Skill roll 3.5 had a lot of really gamist elements, and that's one of those things that one of the most frequent problems with talking to someone, and this is what I ran into when I was talking to my fellow game designer, my peer, was that the most common interactions that people have had with social combat systems is imbalance. And I can name off all of the most popular role-playing games of the last 20 years. There aren't any in there that had balanced social combat systems up until maybe 4 or 5 years ago, where we started to see really good, really interesting social combat systems. But none of the early ones were like that. I don't even want to talk about being a Twi'lek in the early Star Wars role-playing game. Oh, God. I'd like your Star Destroyer. Okay, you made the skill roll. Hop on in. Where do you want to go? Like, yeah. So.
Yeah, so, well, I mean, there's insight, there's deception. I mean, there's deception, right? There's persuasion. You've got these ways of interacting. And there's a lot of, I think, give and take RP-wise and based on the skill checks. I mean, you can say, oh, I'd like to persuade them to give me their ship. I don't care what the role is. You're probably not, it's not going to happen. It doesn't matter what points you get on it. It's just, that is a situation you're not going to create. It's just like similarly saying, because you don't have social hit points, and do we want to go down that road to make it as good a game that way as... Here's my example. A Twi'lek should not be able to convince Darth Vader that Darth Vader has an error in his ways because of his social skills. Any more than I can say, crits automatically hit, right? Okay, I'm going to shoot an arrow to something on the other side of the planet. And mechanically speaking, if I roll a 20, I should be able to hit it. No, it doesn't work that way. Unless you can get that, what is it, like 18,000 miles an hour. Unless you can get your arrow to go 18,000 miles an hour so it can get into orbit and then somehow drop from orbit. Like, this just doesn't work that way. So there have to be lines. There have to be, this is what the rules were for. And if you're getting into this crazy stuff, that's really not what it's about. Just because the rules say you can do it doesn't necessarily mean you can. So... Anyway, I think we've kind of gone on this side path long enough. Talking about game design rather than... I always want to talk about game design. I'm terrible that way. I was going to give people the narcissist ability from my skill tree thing. Okay, this is the narcissist ability from bards from my classless system. You may use your inspiration die on yourself. This inspiration die acts just as those described in inspiration. You do not have to use a bonus action to take this die. However, you may only have one at a time, as noted above. I have extra rules for it. Unused inspiration die that are taken for your own use are lost if not expended, just as if they have been given to a friendly creature, and this use consumes one of your inspiration dice. So basically you have the ability to use your own inspiration dice. It's the only thing I've never seen a bard be able to do. I'm like, narcissism? Narcissism. Seems like he'd figure out a way, or she'd figure out a way to buff themselves. So, but anyway. I dig it. I think, okay, this is the thing. I think if that was given to General Bard and like out the gate, what would happen is they would just probably use all their inspiration die on themselves.
Well,
it'd be like if a cleric could only heal other people, he would heal other people all the time. Do you know what I mean? But
I think you'd still use inspiration die on other people. I think it would put it more in the hands of the player and less in the hands of the rule book.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
I always want to put things in the player's hands. Self-aggrandizement. Exactly, Doug. I inspire myself all the time. I got out of bed today. Go me.
Woo woo.
Same. Same.
Indeed. So if there's any other questions, GM911 questions, that would be really handy at this point. Because I've kind of gone through the ones that have not been checked out.
And thank you, Winnie the Fox. I get a lot of disagreement when I tell people they have to role play it, but that's how I run. That's just me, though. That doesn't mean I'm doing it right or wrong. That doesn't mean other people should do it that way. It's just me. Lucky owl. You are a lucky owl today. The most powerful power out there is the power of friendship. Later, Kiba.
What about believing in yourself and other cliche main character goals?
Any cool ideas for making up lore or history on the spot?
Well, sometimes when my player characters go into bars, I will talk about who's around the bar.
Can I briefly interrupt you and then I'll re-ask the question?
Sure.
All right. Nerdator Doug has a question. He said, what do you do when your paranoid players are so sure the natives plan to sacrifice them, but that's totally not what you had in mind?
This just confirms, as far as I'm concerned, that we are going to be... This is like a just giant cooker we're being sent into. Yeah, we're going to be lava roasted.
Okay. So Uncle Peter's question, back to that. Any cool ideas for making up lore history on the spot?
Oh, you're frozen. I was not frozen.
I believe in you. You can
digitally.
Do this.
I was frozen physically. I was reading chat and I was mesmerized because I'm trying to play the game of reading it before it zips up and I can't see it anymore.
I've got it. I've got you covered here.
I'm gonna need that question again.
You want the question one more time? Mm-hmm. One more time. It's the last time.
I'm prepared for it.
Any cool ideas for making up lore history on the spot?
Okay, so sometimes when reboot Nate. When I am describing a scene or something like that, I will say, I want to add a thieves guild in here. What's it going to look like? I bet they're going to have a symbol like two golden hands holding a money purse. And you don't know if it's being given to the person or they're taking it. So this kind of, so I just like made that up on the spot as a symbol for a thieves guild. And I had someone wearing a pin of it. And that was a thief in the area, but they didn't know. Later, they'll find out that that's a Thieves Guild symbol, and they'll be like, hey, wait a minute, that guy. But for the most part, they just think he's a normal person. So I just put that guy in there just randomly. I'll decide what he's actually going to do. But so I made a Thieves Guild, basically insignia on the spot. Another thing is when they're at the inn or traveling or talking with somebody, if they're not just a regular farmer doing something, I will have them be maybe they're from a mercenary company, and I'll just make up a name for the mercenary company, and it's from XYZ city, and this is their insignia, or they're talking about rumors that come from that area. And a lot of the times the rumors are just there to flesh out the world for the players and make them think there's more than just what's going on with them right now. Major thing I would say as a GM tip, if you only give players rumors pertinent to the quests that are happening currently, it's kind of like an obvious gimme, and it makes them think that the only thing happening in the world, in a way, is exactly what they're doing and nothing else.
Is the railroad.
Yeah.
All they think that's happening is the railroad.
It is the little bits and pieces of information, almost like a movie cutting out all the excess scenes. They're like, we can do without this, and we need to trim 15 minutes, so it's going to go. So something like that, I include that kind of stuff because it's not a movie. It's supposed to be, an RPG. So you've got the ability to say, if they wanted to, like, wow, that interests me. Or, my parents were killed by Ankegs, so I'm going to go stop this threat, 100 miles to the north and kill these Ankegs. Rather than do the quests that the GM thought we were going to go do. So I guess the one thing is if you put lore into the game, be prepared for your players to act upon it. especially for the first couple times you do it, until they get used to the point of you putting in lore that they do not have to act upon. So when they don't think every bit of information you give them is a plot hook or something that they could investigate or deal with like immediately, they'll be like, oh, you know, that's interesting that this stuff's happening. I met a farmer who said there's issues to the north. I met this person say there's goblins over here. There's pirates, you know, stirring up trade to the south. These three things are pirates.
Sorry.
All these things are happening. I could choose to go with any of these situations. So basically, I don't have the pirates written, so I don't know what's actually going on there. I just say stuff that the peasants are saying.
I keep a stack of NPCs sitting next to me when I GM.
There you go.
Big old stack. Some of them are old player characters. Just whatever I need. Let's see here. My wife's 3rd level barbarian. I'm in. Okay, next question, and we have many questions, so we're gonna have to knock them out pretty quick.
All right, I'll do this one real quick. Christopher Perkins, GM901. In your opinion, what is the best feat in the game that includes all the additional books that have come out? All right, I like Elven Accuracy, the racial feat. I'm not saying it's the best. I'm saying I like it a lot.
My feat.
My feat. I like my feat, both of them. I also really like Alert. But
yeah,
I dig. We know, but I like Tavern Brawler too. I don't know. There's a lot of cool feats to take that are neat. It depends on what kind. Whatever feat would work best for the character I'm currently playing is my favorite feat.
Okay. All right. Cardboard Fortress. Question. This is more of a player problem. What should you do when the other players don't take the initiative to move things forward? I don't want to always be the motivator and leader. Mm-hmm. My last game session went like this. One player became the leader. He was the most outspoken person at the table. I was constantly looking to him and relying on him, and it ended up just burning him out. He just didn't want to deal with it. He wanted to just hang back every once in a while. He wanted to have some sessions with some downtime where he didn't have to talk. Just chill out. Is there a fight? I'll fight, you know? But he ended up having to have conversations with every NPC and had to be the person to, you know, so.
Yeah, I would say as far as that, you can start by rather than saying, hey, this is the way we're going to go, maybe talk with one of the players you think would be best suited for the situation and talk to them and kind of jumpstart their solving of the problem. I don't know how the way to say it. I'm not saying it's not like an easy fix, like, bam, do this and all of your problems are solved when it comes to this situation. But
you have to be the leader, delegate. And that doesn't mean tell someone what to do. That means put them in a position to make an excellent choice or put them in a position to push themselves forward. For instance, you could do something like, hey, whatever, you know, hey, Nate, this seems kind of like your thing. Do you want to talk to this person? Because they don't like me. Maybe you should do all the talking here. Or, you know, it's really hard to make sure everybody gets some time to shine. So the other day, Nub Nub hadn't said anything for a while. And then all the villagers liked his red stick. And I was like, Stan, tell Nub Nub to do all the talking. And now finally Nub Nub gets a chance to role play just because, you know, we're making around the circle and everybody needs a turn. So.
So I know that's not an easy fix answer, but it's one of those things. Eventually the other players, I mean, I would say Dave and Ted had to deal with me being a quiet person for like the first 10 years I gamed. So I was never interested in being the character that shined. I was never interested in being the character that role played with some XYZ thing. They had to, any DM had to pull it out of me. So, and that's just the way I played. So you're going to be smacking your head against the wall if you have that type of player, and you're trying to trying to not be the one that pushes things forward, but kind of like pushes them out and says, "Jay, do this thing."
Cardboard
So
Fortress's next comment is, yeah, but sometimes I want to play a big dumb oaf. I sympathize with this. I've played characters like this before. Sometimes I want to play a big dumb oaf, but no one else is coming up with a plan, so my oaf has to be smarter than he is. And
no,
yeah,
be Jogo. Dave as Jogo probably messed up parts of the campaign by doing things that he felt Jogo would do. So that's a good way for them to learn. Omos is dying because the stupid barbarian didn't come up with the master plan like you all expected him to, because, you know, Cardboard Fortress is playing the stupid dumb oaf, so he always comes up with the plan, so he's going to come up with the plan regardless. No, play the stupid dumb oaf. Play your character the way you want to play your character. If the game burns, if the arc breaks and the bad guys win, I think that'll be a good lesson for all the other people playing characters, that they should have probably stepped up and dealt with it in a different way. And be like, hey, look, what am I supposed to do? I'm playing this type of character. If you're playing the assassin, you know, you're not going to be the one, shouldn't expect the assassin to be paladin, to play paladin or the tank role or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, similarly, someone else is going to have to take the lead, or stuff's going to fall flat.
There's the social butterfly aspect. If you feel like you're good at conversation and you feel like you can help bring some other people into the light, Jan just said me, socially awkward in real life. If you can help maybe some of the people at the table that are socially awkward or a little meek or have never played D&D before, if you can help push them in the right direction, get them moving in the right direction, and then back away slowly and see how long you can keep them just doing their thing without you having to be involved. For me personally, I spend the bulk of my time as the GM, and I don't know that I've concentrated too much on a player, because I judge how the game is going by everybody's entertainment level. I talk to people before about what they expect. I talk to people after about if they had fun. I talk to people during the game about what's going on and try and judge faces and how tired everyone looks. So I don't really know until someone says something to me. The last time he was like, dude, why doesn't anybody else come up with plans? Or why doesn't anybody else want to do X, Y, and Z? I do the electric fence test, and that tells me a lot about party dynamic. Everybody is standing in an endless field in every direction. All of you have the clothing you're wearing. There's a 12-foot electric fence in front of you. The mission here is for the group to get on the other side of the fence. And then I'll go get a cup of water, have a cup of tea. I'll wait. They got to sort it out. I want a good answer. And there doesn't have to be a right answer. I just want to know what they want to do. And then listen, look at what the players are doing. Look at how they're interacting with each other. Who's in charge? You can figure out your whole party with just an electric fence. What?
No, I think that's true.
GM 911. Okay, I got one for you. What is your funniest as a GM total party kill situations that you just look back as like, wow, that's hilarious? My wife's very first time she ever played a role-playing game.
You killed the whole party?
I didn't kill the whole party. They chose death. That's hilarious.
Oh yeah, so, that's right.
So
the game kills the player characters, not the GM.
GMs don't kill players. Dice kill players. Okay, so this group, my wife, my buddy, and his wife, and my brother, they're all playing in this game. And so the guys have kind of leaned back because the girls are getting really into it and they've got all this cool stuff they want to do. So the guys are leaning back. My wife and his wife are pretty much running the show. And so the guys are like, all right, we're going to follow you in through thick and thin. And so they go into this cave. There's this huge army of undead kobolds coming. There's one direction where they can hear chanting down this hall. And there's there's like this crazy like tent shanty thing set up, and they can hear all this chanting. The other direction, sunlight. They decide they're going to go towards the horrible tent with the chanting. And I'm like, if you guys do that, you'll be cut off from escape because of the undead kobold army that's going to follow you in, like 100 undead kobolds. And they're like, we don't care. We got to know what's down there. And I'm like,
it's like,
but you're probably going to die.
Yeah.
Okay. You're probably going to die. And they're like, no, we want to do this. We're going. And so they just followed him. They followed him in, and everyone died. Flaming hands followed by being ripped from the necromancer, followed by being ripped apart by hundreds of kobolds. So, yeah. What do you got? What's your best GMing story?
For TPKs, I haven't participated in many. So I'm trying to think, like, back in the day, there was a situation where Ryan didn't know his hit point total at the time. And he was offed by a whole bunch of goblins. And that was the one death, and it was a team of 4. So it was like in order. We all died. And it was like one after the other. And it kind of made me think, we should probably back out of this. Like, someone was thinking, maybe we should stop and get some new people. This is probably going to be tough. Well, someone's already died. But no, we're like, let's trudge on. So the next person dies. Mm-hmm. And then we're like, well, the encounter's kind of over. How bad could it be? And then one of them's imprisoned in some kind of magical trap. So the last person alive doesn't know what to do without the magic trap, has no idea, and is like, well, I guess that person's as good as dead. We're in a foreign land in some kind of wizard's tower, whatever. And then they go off and they get poisoned to death by some familiar. So the whole party is basically dead, but it's like this slow build up towards oblivion, instead of just like one combat where everybody gets killed.
So we had a few in here. Jackoprop said, what's the best GM screen for your money? I will show you. So this is one of the newer GM screens. This is like $30 or something.
That's a good one.
And then this, $2, $3.
Oh man, I like that art.
$2. Yard sales are your friend. That last one was a Shadowrun one, but go to yard sales. People are always getting rid of their old D&D stuff. And every time I see a sweet old GM screen, I'm like, oh dear God, there's no way you'd actually sell that. Like, because to me, they're priceless. So I can't believe it. I pick up as many as I can get.
I got to go to more yard sales with GM screens on them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say really whatever GM screen has the stuff that you need on the back of it is the best GM screen. So if it has for 5th edition, if it has the conditions, or you can stick a sticky note somewhere that they'll have the conditions, and they block off stuff that you want to hide from the players. So like when you're rolling dice for just fun, but they don't mean anything. When you're trying to psych out the players. My
admission to laziness. Yeah. All that data on the back of the GM screen, I don't use it because I always have a rules lawyer at the table.
I like to know what's coming if I plan on hitting them with something.
If I really need to know, I will absolutely look it up and figure it out. But if I have like one of my standard rules lawyers at the table, there's no point in having a GM screen. If I get even close to screwing up, they'll tell me 10 ways to Sunday why I screwed up, what rule I missed on. I mean, if anything, I should thank them because they teach me more about the rules, more than I'd ever have learned on my own. So, but yeah, old bookstores, like used bookstores, GM screens everywhere in there. And they're always marked down because the people in the used bookstore are like, I don't even know what you do with this, but apparently this piece of cardboard is worth money, 50 cents. So yeah.
It's worth as much as a crinkled paperback.
Here's a question for you from Brian Smith. How do you make shopping entertaining?
Have a bunch of people with merchant backgrounds.
That is not an answer. Please try again.
Okay, for my current game, I have a person's trying to be a merchant. I have a jeweler. I have a person who doesn't care about shopping at all, but gets into weird situations in shopping areas, and a person that just might need something. So like half the group has got a certain level of shop or kind of like haggling stuff going on, or trying to make deals to make money. So that's kind of part of their adventure in a way, is they're trying to accrue wealth through their backgrounds. So that I kind of like have it in there for that. But I also tend to do a lot of voices and descriptions and make the shops as real as I can in a lot of ways. And I mean, there was like 2 hours of one of my previous games, I guess, like the past month or so, where we just did shopping. Like
That's
shopping.
a lot of shopping.
And it is if that's all it is, but there's rumors, there's information going on. They're stopping by the tavern and talking to people that are still congratulating from rescuing somebody, or gaining vengeance for some person who died. There's all these things that go on to make the world real to them. So yes, there's one of the players that just said, hey, I don't want to haggle at all. I don't want to do any of that stuff. I just want to really go to a shop and buy stuff and then leave. And for that player, I'm like, no problem. And other stuff goes on. So I'd say there's have a bit of shopping. It's got to feel like less like a task they need to accomplish, like a grocery list, and more like part of the world and an adventure. Do you know what I mean?
Doug is hilarious. First, he said something insightful, but then he just started cutting up. He said, entertaining shopping is kind of up to the players to some extent. Do they just want to buy stuff, or do they want a role play experience?
Yeah. And
if you have a sense of your group, you should have no problem facilitating that.
You'll know if they want to do a role playing experience, or if they want to just, I want to buy my new armor and leave and go fight in the dungeon. That's what I want to do. So don't walk me through the blacksmith, him hauling and about stuff, or telling me about the different things he has.
Chips, dips, chains, and whips.
Speaking of chains and whips, one of my characters in one of the characters in my game that I DM played a trick on another one of the characters, made them think that their dog was talking to them psychically with the message spell. It worked out. Basically, he was petting the dog, and then there was like trickery going on where the dog was saying, "Oh yeah, right behind the ear, right there." So the dwarf was, I was in on the thing. So I said, "Oh, you hear a voice in your head say this," and he had never had the message spell used before, so he didn't know it was like a spell. He thought, like, wait a minute, what is going on? Is my dog talking to me? So later, to get back at that trickster character, the player character wanted to get leather armor, and they weren't familiar with the city. So the person that was familiar with the city said, hey, I want to send them to a shop where they can get leather goods. And with a smile on his face, he said, oh yeah, I know just the place. Well, not knowing what was going on, that player looking for the leather goods ends up going to the Lasso and Gauntlet, which is a very fine establishment where all kinds of different leather goods can be purchased, including things like lassos and harnesses and all these other kind of things. And they had this really nice articulated leather gauntlet, leather armor of this like leather like sculpture studded and all kinds of stuff. It looked kind of like a demon. Like if you were to design like some kind of like leather kind of cosplay demon out of leather armor. And it had this like restraining lasso, like as if it was being caught by one of the other mannequins. And I don't know why, but the player got the impression that this was some kind of strange shop that sold leather goods, not a leather armor shop. I said, I don't know what you're talking about. So that was kind of like the get back. So they use shopping. They use shopping to continue their kind of like banter back and forth as player characters. So to me, that was like a really cool
totally
thing.
into that. That sounds great.
Yeah, so that's what shopping could be like. It could also just be Final Fantasy style, where I want to shove these items at this merchant. I want them to give me gold, and I want to buy my stuff and leave.
I usually try and have some kind of guide or something like that for them. Like I've always had a hard time. One of the worst things for me when dealing with shopping is when someone goes in with gems. Man, if you want to role play and exchange correctly, go into Bob the blacksmith's shop in a town that has a population of 600 people and slap down a 9,000 gold piece ruby. He has no idea what it's worth.
And then ask for change.
Yeah, it could be so big and crazy that he's like, that's got to be faked. There's no way I believe you actually own that. Or he could be like, that's amazing. Do you want to buy all my horses and this building?
Yeah. And I'll have to travel to a city, hope I don't get robbed, to exchange this for the things that I actually want to have. It's like, it's practically useless. It's like going up to somebody and being like, I've got this gold bar and I would like that latte, please.
I have no idea what your gold bar is worth, sir. I do not know the current price of gold per ounce.
Nor can I accept it as currency here.
Yeah, exactly. Also, it is illegal, literally illegal, to buy this frappe with your gold bar.
Yeah, I'll get fired.
Yeah, you will get fired. You'll go to jail. That's illegal. Like, it's not okay.
But I'll totally step aside from the counter, buy that off of you, and then you can buy the coffee with real money.
Exactly. Is there a gold and silver exchange nearby?
Yeah.
I really want to give Ori a chance, but no one locally of the same mind. I think slap down a 90 gold piece ruby and convince him it's a 9k gold piece ruby. That's the thing. Gems are really, really just a huge pain in the butt because people will not understand the actual value of them. Especially when you talk about the higher end value of something. If you go into some farmer's shop and you say, this is a 900 gold piece ruby and I want everything off your shelves, they're just not going to see as much value in that ruby as you. So you're probably only going to get half the stuff off their shelves. And that's not going to be worth even 0.25% of what that ruby is worth.
And they'll still be grumpy because they won't know where they're going to move this item.
Right. I literally have to pack up everything I own and move in order to get to the city and use this ruby for something. And then he's going to get ripped off when he trades it in. Like realistically, if you're trading in like really expensive rubies and stuff, you got to be in a city and you got to be trading with the big boys.
Again, there's a certain level of, this is a fantasy game, not a game simulator. So this of the real world. So there's a certain extent where you say, oh yeah, this is how it would really work, but let's just treat it like it's money. You could go that way. Or if you want to, part of the adventure to be trying to cash in this for its true value instead of taking like way less. That could be something as well. It's like, it all depends on the type of motivations your players have for playing, the type of characters they do, and how they're role playing the player characters, on whether or not shopping, whether or not having a really awesome high value item. Like, that could be a quest in and of itself, is getting the money value out of that thing, trying to move it, find the right buyer. That can all be background stuff, but it can also be quest style stuff where you're actually trying to persuade people, find contacts, hunt people down to figure out where you could access certain people that are going to give you access to these type of revenue streams and other things. And
so I was just going to say, Cody Sams has a comment that's fitting. So a lot of hand waving, like spell components. Exactly.
Yeah, too much role play, too much haggling, and I'm rolling on the random encounter table. Cardboard Fortress, the best way to have shopping be fun is to have a fight break out. Yeah, so it depends on the group, I think, and what you as a dungeon master is going to, how you're going to facilitate it. Like I did carousing. It was the entire campaign evening. I mean, the entire evening was the what happened because of the carousing table. They randomly rolled on it. I said, these were the things that are going to be happening. And by the end of the night, there was someone dead in a chest. Not one of the player characters, but they were all in the same room with a dead man in a chest.
Yeah.
That's what happened on the carousing. And that was, 4 or 5 hours. All the things that were going on and all the things that happened while they're waiting for somebody to come into town. And that can be fun, or that can be extremely boring. It's all player character, player dynamic, and how you're doing it as a DM.
And I've definitely had situations where like a bunch of players need to get into a swamp. They were going to trade with some like tribal lizard men that live there. The tribal lizard men had like stone clubs and stuff like that. And the players were like, well, all they have is, and none of this was my idea. This was the players' ideas. I just followed suit. I just went with what they thought would happen because it was beautiful. They were like, well, these guys all have stone weapons. What do they think of a steel sword? And I was like, they're really impressed. And so the players were like showing off their steel weapons. And so they gave the steel weapons in exchange for these flowers they wanted instead of any money. They just gave their steel weapons. And these tribal people were like, oh my God, steel is amazing. We want this. We know what it is, but we've never had any. And so that's kind of how that exchange went down. And it was kind of the players' insight that led me to that conclusion. But I love stuff like that. Love stuff like that. They were going to have to fork over all kinds of stuff when I had them originally approach. And then they came up with a whole steel weapon thing, and they were showing off chopping trees and swinging them around and stuff. And I was like, yep, they're impressed. They want those steel weapons. And we are at time.
Wow, really?
Yes, unfortunately, sir.
I wanted to say one little thing. There was a question earlier about something, and I have to say Draco Liches are awesome. Because Liches are awesome. And that's all I have to say.
Evil.
Awesomely evil. What's better than Lich? A Dragon Lich. What's better than Draco Lich? A Psychic Draco Lich.
Oh my
An
God.
Astral Draco Lich.
Thanks, Doug. I hope we didn't inspire you too much. That's scary.
Yeah. I still think we're going to get... I think chocolate makes us taste better. That's what's going to happen.
Doug's going to TPK this Friday. I can feel it. Feel it in my bones.
Yes. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you for the questions. And my plan is to tap the people that I did the GM 911 for, that from the emails, and get this to them. But hopefully that'll be the case. So let us know what you think in the comments below. You got anything else?
I just wanted to say thank you to James Leslie for awesome moderation tonight.
Yes.
I know we had a problem child in chat. Thanks
Goofery.
for sorting it out for us, buddy.
Yes.
That's
Awesome
all.
moderation. Thank you for joining me. And thank you for joining us. And until next time, stay nerdy.
Stay nerdy.